Hello, everyone. My name is Asim Chhabra. I'm a film journalist, a film festival programmer. Maya is the director of a beautiful moving film, which I actually just watched. And I'm assuming if you guys are watching this Q&A, you have just also watched the film called The Fever, which last year in 2019 won the Best Actor Award at Locarno. So Maya, I think many of the people who would have seen the film, we all have been following the news. The Amazon forest were on fire. Was it this year or it was last year? Uh,
Both years.
Both years. And it was a devastating piece of news, and videos were, all over on social media were being shared. And I mean, one felt very helpless because I was sitting in India at that time, and what can you do? But what is the state of affairs? Because your film basically deals with um, the indigenous people. They've been uprooted from the Amazon forest, which is their home basically, and coming to bigger cities because that's where they have to come because of jobs. And they feel very alienated in this new setup. I mean, is that the right way to put it, really?
Mhm.
Uh, what is the current situation as such with the Amazon forest, and what's the political situation there?
Well, we have always had, Amazon is a giant region, very big region in Brazil, and that's also shared with different countries in Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the biggest state of Brazil. And it's a region where we have many different indigenous nations, indigenous peoples that speak different languages, that have their own culture, and
Mm-hmm.
that have been suffering on the last 500 years, at least, since we had the invasion of Europe in Brazil with
Mm-hmm.
colonization and all the process that came together with it. And so it's something that has been, it's a situation that has been increasing and for quite a long time. But then we had a moment with the constitution of the 80s, of 88, in which
Mm-hmm.
the rights of indigenous people have been, at least a part of them have been assured.
Mm-hmm.
So indigenous people were recognized as citizens of Brazil, and with their own and specific rights, and with some organisms that were to take care of the environment around them, and also of the possibility that they could maintain their ways of life. And when we started to have democracy in Brazil, because we had a long period of dictatorship that
Mm-hmm.
has been also very nocive and hard for indigenous peoples. Many indigenous people died during the dictatorship
Mm-hmm.
in Brazil. But then we had a democratic period. And in that period in Brazil, we could have, and this is the period where the film have been shooted, because
Mm-hmm.
the film have been shot in 2018. So,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
well, we are starting to go to the end of this democratic period. But when
Right.
the film was developed, there was a moment that we had many indigenous people in university. So we had a quota for indigenous people to come to university. Many people that are working in different areas in Brazil, that are
Mm-hmm.
lawyers, that are anthropologists, that work with culture artists and filmmakers,
Mm-hmm.
and that are really making a huge contribution to Brazilian
Mm-hmm.
culture with their own perspectives and points of view. And now, since the right-wing government, the extreme right-wing government of Bolsonaro came to power, what you have been seeing is really persecution of indigenous people by omission. So by the omission of their rights, by nothing have the institutions that take care of the policies for them anymore working, so not having money for that anymore, not having the
Mm-hmm.
right people there anymore,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
destabilizing
Mm-hmm.
everything that would
Mm-hmm.
enable things
Mm-hmm.
that would enable these rights to be actually practiced,
Mm-hmm.
to be a practice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very hard moment. And what we see, for example, with the fires in Brazil is a consequence of not have all the policies that normally the organisms and the institutions that take care of the national parks do. before the dry period in Brazil, because we have a period where there is not many rains, that's very dry, that normally you can have more fires. And if you don't do some prevention work on that, then the fires can get really big. And what's also happening is that Bolsonaro government is really aligned with the interests of agro business. So the big farms, they start they want to clean the area, clean the forest, to be able to do plantations in these areas. And then they start to put fire with the excuse that it wasn't them, but it was the dry season. And it's very difficult to have a control, because it's a giant area, not only in Amazon, but also in center, east or west of Brazil, where it's a more dry region, but with a lot of fauna and very rich environment. We are testifying this. It's really sad what's happening actually. But this is only one phase of this government. There is a lot more going on.
Yeah. How one of the most remarkable things about your film, I thought, was that you cast, other than, I think there were two Brazilian white actors. So there is the co-worker, in the locker room they meet, and also this woman who was in the human resources, and some maybe some doctors. Yes. All the other actors that you cast in the film are indigenous people. And did you, how did you find them? Did they have any theater or acting training, or did you do any workshops with them? Because I think there's something so warm and moving and loving about the daughter, for instance, and of course your lead actor who plays the father. So tell us about that, how you found the actors.
Well, it was a long process. We had a long process of development of the film also, with researching and writing. That took me 5 years. And then in the end of this process, I started to cast. And then it has also been a long process. It has lasted around a year. And I went around many different urban indigenous villages around Manaus.
I see.
Where indigenous people that have moved to live near the city have come and have established themselves and make kind of new indigenous villages on that regions. And then I started to talk with people and to invite people that had the will to take part of a film to come to talk to me. And then I've talked with around 500 people, different people, for all the different characters we have in the film. And then it took me some time to meet Regis Mirupu, who plays the lead actor, the lead character, and also Rosa Peixoto, who plays his daughter. And then after we met for the first time, for me it was somehow clear that they were with whom I would like to work. And then we passed through a long period of rehearsal together, and with the whole family, with all the actors that played the roles of the family. And then we stayed for around the son, yes, the brother of Vanessa,
the brother and sister-in-law,
and then the brother,
the grandchild also,
everybody. And then we stayed for 2 months rehearsing. And it was a long process of rehearsing also with them. And then there was also the language, because the film is spoken Portuguese in Tucano, that is their language, and also in Chikuna, that's another indigenous languages, which the woman that is in the hospital speaks. That's not the same language as Vanessa, who is attending her. So as we had these different languages in the film, there was language had a keyhole in our rehearsals, and we are always switching from Portuguese to Tucano and going forwards and backwards and repeating again. And then it was a moment also of building it together, and that was a moment that we left the script apart and we started to build the scenes together. And then they brought the scenes to Tucano. They developed something themselves, and then they present to me in Tucano. And then I couldn't really understand everything, but as I knew the scene, I could follow them, and they brought back it to Portuguese, and then I could see how the scene had changed with all the suggestions that they made and what they have worked themselves in it. And then we decide together, let's keep that, let's not keep that. And then we start like this, in this, going from one language to the other, and to Dan and to me, building something together. That is what we see in the screen.
So let me understand a few things. There's some very interesting things you talked about. So all of these, the actors, they never acted before, none of them, right?
No.
Because they lived in these villages outside the Amazon, near the town where you shot the film, I guess they were all speaking Portuguese because that's the language they speak at work.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it is when they are, so for instance, I mean, I keep thinking of the lady in the human resources department, or the co-worker who's kind of racist. That's Portuguese, but the language that's being spoken over the dining table between the father and daughter, or when the brother and sister-in-law come, or that tell me again, what is the language?
Tucano.
And it's very different than Portuguese. The Portuguese is the European language, basically.
Completely different.
Yeah.
I can't understand it.
So you obviously had this confidence that you were developed with these actors, that they had. Did they translate your script, or the script itself and the story itself evolved much more once you saw them together as a family unit?
Yeah, actually, I had a script in what I had worked for quite a long time, and then we started reading the script together. And once we had read the whole script together, we left the script apart. So nobody brought a script home, for example. We left the script there, and then we start to rehearsal. So we started with other things. We start telling stories to each other, for example. And then I started to tell a story of my own story of life, and Regis would tell a story that came from his background. So, for example, the story that he tells to his grandson in the dining table, the story that he brought during the rehearsals. And then every one of us would tell a different story to each other. And then after that, I would ask for them to repeat the story that the other had told. And this was a way of activating memory and presence, and understanding how we could tell a story that was not exactly our story, but that we could bring it to us also, and how we could build something together, in the sense that we were there to tell a story together. And then we had worked for quite a long time on that. And then we come back to the scenes. And then when we start to work in the scenes, normally we started with improvisation. So we had in our mind what was the core of the scene. And then they would improvise over that. Once we have decided what we wanted to keep as what we want to achieve. And then it was this process of coming back, and then each night I would come back home and I would rewrite the script with what they had brought and with what they had proposed. And then we had the script always in Portuguese. There was a moment that we thought about translating the script to Tucano, but as Tucano is an oral tradition, it's the Sana people, the Tariano people, the Tucano people, they all speak Tucano apart from their own mother language, mother tongue, but they are oral traditional cultures. So the handwriting, the writing is not really a tool that they use as much.
Spoken.
And then it can take a quite a long time to translate the script, and then it wouldn't be so useful for them neither, because they have a really, really strong memory, as they are used to listening to stories and telling stories and having all their knowledge learned by heart. So it's a different way of processing things, and there was not so much the relation with the paper and with what's written in the paper as something that's going to give us the security we need to be able to play. For them, it didn't work that way. So we decided to not translate to Tucano. Regis was the only person between them that could write in Tucano. So it didn't make so much sense. And then we had the script in Portuguese. That was this script that had been rewritten during the rehearsal with what they had also brought, and it was a kind of basis for the shooting. But then we would also bring it back, because as it was in Portuguese, it was not something that the words weren't there. They would need to go back to improvisation and to find the words in Tucano again. So this made things to be very fresh, in the sense that they always need to think about what they were saying. They were not remembering words that were written on paper.
I mean, it is absolutely fascinating. I mean, I watched the film with an English subtitle, but I'm curious. This film obviously has been released in Brazil, right? In theaters? Did it play in theaters last year?
Well, no, because when we were releasing the film, we would release the film in April, and then we had COVID that had arrived
Oh,
just before on March in Brazil.
oh,
So we had to interrupt it all, and now we'll be releasing now in November, but in streamings, more in
yeah,
streaming, and also in
yeah.
some few theaters that are already open in Brazil.
So how are you going to do it where there'll be a large population who will come to watch the film who only understand Portuguese, and so you'll have subtitling there also. The Chicano
All the
language will be
Tucano
subtitled.
and Ticuna part are subtitles to Portuguese. Yeah.
The subtitle, yeah, yeah. I'm curious about. I mean, I have some idea about the political situation in Brazil. You have a right-wing government now, although it was democratically elected. Unfortunately, democracy sometimes is not the best thing. In the U.S., we elected Donald Trump democratically also. So that's what democracy gives us. But I'm curious about
But
how.
we cannot, yeah. But even though we cannot, I mean, defend another possibility that's not democracy, I believe, no, because then we really go to a regime that's not listening to what people want.
Which is the democracy is in any case. It's an experiment every time. In America, every 4 years there's an experiment of democracy, and some governments are better than others. But I'm curious about the mood in Brazil right now. How would people react to a film like this? While I'm sure there are activists, there are students. You mentioned people who feel the urgency of taking up the issues concerning the indigenous people, the fact that the Amazon forest is being cleared up and destroyed. That's just not just destroying a way of life, but I think the whole world's climate system will be impacted. What do you think? I mean, I really wish your film a lot of luck, but what do you think the political situation in Brazil, how will that help or not? Well, in what way would it impact the film?
Well,
You
it's
understand what I'm
difficult
saying?
to
Yeah.
say. Yeah, but I'm not sure if I have the answer, in the sense that the film have played in a couple of festivals in Brazil, and now that we're
Right.
going to be releasing it, so the
Right.
film have been turning more in festivals around the world for the moment, in some specific festivals in Brazil also, but we didn't have the feedback of the public in a more large scale
Right.
as we
Right.
hope to have
Right.
now that the film is going to be released.
Yeah.
But when I have shooted the film, we didn't have the same political situation as we have now. And then also people ask me a lot about all the relations with the fever that Justino feels, and the illness, that's a illness that doesn't have exactly explanation in Western science and medicine, and COVID, and the relation between these things. And what I can say is that I didn't thought about any of that when I was making the film, because I didn't know it
Obviously,
would
you
happen
didn't
at
know
all.
about it. Yeah.
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 And now I see that there are some new connections that people establish, because this is the power of art somehow. And if things are moving and you don't control it at all, and then people are going to find their own readings and their own connections, and are going to transform our work and make it alive. And make it alive also in history, in the sense that it's there in the world, and keeping dialogue with what's happening. And that's I find that's really powerful. And somehow what we are living now in Brazil is something that had been always there. It's part of Brazilian history, in the sense that we can only have this extreme right-wing government because what made it possible has always existed in Brazil. We can say the same thing about Trump, United States.
Yeah. Yes.
So
Yes.
these
Yeah.
forces, these ways of the way of thinking, the mentality has always been there. We have we have had a dictatorship not so long ago in Brazil,
Yes.
and the United
Yes.
States has largely financed this dictatorship.
Right.
So
Right.
the links, the historical links between things are very, very close, and and these forces that have always been there and that are there in Vanderlei, that is the character that's playing with, that is in the locker room with Justino. No, this mentality that Vanderlei kind of brings to him is very present in a large part of Brazil, even nowadays. And we weren't seeing that so much anymore, because we had a long period of left-wing government in which we had a lot of changes, and somehow we thought that we could only go forward in the sense of growing as a country in be more respectful to others, and have the minority rights guaranteed, and having a more and more democratic countries, in the sense that people that live there could have the minimum same rights, and things that now are going, are all being putting away. Yeah, this mentalist, I don't know how to say that in
Yeah.
Brazil.
No, it's very fascinating. I want to come back to the film itself, because I think what is really beautiful about the film is, so tell me the name of the lead actor again. What's his name?
Regis Mirupu. Regis
Regis Mirupu.
Regis
Yeah, Regis
Mirupu.
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 Yeah, Mirupu. Um, it's his face is, there's so much magic in his face. There's so much love and compassion, and but yet you are seeing changes happening beyond his control. He wants his daughter to go to medical school. He says he will not affect him, but he actually starts to get the fever. And I'd like to understand from you about the fever, the idea of fever, because we also in real life, also in general life, people sometimes start to get so stressed that it starts to impact their life. And so while there is that stress that's probably creating this fever, I think you're also trying to say something more with the fever. You want to address that, and how beautiful he acts through that really sad moments.
Yeah, I believe that this is really something of him. He's really precise in his movements, and he's someone that can tell a lot by his eyes, and by his way of looking. And that's also what really struck me when I met him for the first time. He's also a healing person in his community. He is the son of a really important shaman of
Oh,
his group,
right.
and then he is the person to whom his father decided to pass his knowledge, and then he has, this is his main work, is a healing work. So somehow he understands very closely what's happening with Justino, in the sense that he's dealing with this type of energy, and with more and with the spiritual relation to our body and to our lives, that this kind of illness brings, and that's also related with the dreams and all that. So what I find interesting is that people have completely different readings about that, and really different interpretations. And this I find really rich, because each one is going to find its way to relate to that. It can be, some people understand what's happening in the end in completely different ways. Some people, as a dog, as a jaguar, as Vanderlei, his co-worker, or not, and as colonization itself. So there are different ways that people react to that, and that's and I think that it should be that way.
Yeah, no, it's really beautiful, and I love the ending, which you sort of leave it open when he goes into the forest. The film is so beautifully shot, also. Um, Give us a sense of how, on one hand, you often use, the shipyard with the crates and all the things that are being loaded and the docks and everything else, like very hardcore industrial business sense. And yet there's a parallel to that when you keep showing us the forests and the beauty of the forest, and there's a haunting quality of the forest. So I don't know if you want to address that. You juxtapose these two very similar, very, very diverse, sorry, not similar at all, very diverse images of Brazil.
Mhm.
And then
It,
obviously,
yeah, it's because Brazil, it's in the end of the 60s, in the dictatorship moment, they decided to build a huge industrial pole in Manaus and also a free commerce zone. So it's a place with many, many industries in the middle of the rainforest. And this makes this place very unique in the sense that
mhm,
you have this very close relation between
mhm,
not only urbanity, but also industry and the
mhm,
forest, the very dense
mhm,
forest, very
mhm,
close
mhm,
one to the other.
mhm,
And what most interested me was the intertwining between them,
yes,
how they crossed each other, because
right,
they were also
right,
crossing each other in Justino head and what Justino was feeling in himself.
mhm,
So I was, for me, it was important to understand how I could bring that present also, because it's not something that uh, I would like to bring to words, for example.
mhm,
So I worked mostly with the sound, and then
mhm,
I found out that there was a same pitch of sound in the machines
mhm.
of the port, for example, and
Mhm.
in some night insects
Oh, wow.
in the
Yeah.
forest. And
Yeah.
then when you hear the sounds with Justino and he's in the port and working and we are close to what's passing into his mind. Normally we worked with the the connection between these different sounds in a way that we
Mhm.
can't know very well
Mhm. Mhm.
exactly
Mhm.
what we
Mhm.
are hearing, if what we're hearing comes from the forest
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
from the port,
Mhm.
from the
Mhm.
machines. And this is something that when you are in Manaus, you really feel that
Mhm.
because of how close the two environments are from each other.
No, it's so there's a certain magical quality to it. I mean, obviously you're making a statement, but just to see these two very distinct um, ways of living, distinct parts of the Mother Earth that we live in. And as you talked about, that the industrial ports and the businesses have been created by actually removing the rainforest. And you do it so beautifully, really. Congratulations. It's such a lovely film. Um, how had the actors, how did they react to it? You told their story. Um, was it easy for them to watch? I mean, I'm sure they must have enjoyed watching themselves also. And have you shown it to a larger community of indigenous people in the villages around? Have they seen it yet?
That's what we wanted to do during the release in Brazil in April. So we
Right.
had a program that would bring the film to different indigenous communities and make projections on that regions. And then we wanted also to bring back Reginaldo, Regis, and Rosa to the region from when they came from and that they don't come back for
Mhm,
more than 20
mhm,
years. So the idea was to come back with them and project the film
mhm,
there. But then we had pandemic, and now indigenous people are living a very, because they are very vulnerable to the
mhm.
virus,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the sense
Yeah.
that they have passed for different pandemics and many people have
Mhm,
died.
mhm,
and and then it's not a moment that we can get into the communities, but we are
mhm,
organizing with our distributor. Now that we are releasing for streaming, we are organizing to do it remotely. So in
mhm,
Brazil we have different indigenous filmmakers that still live in the community, and then we're
mhm.
going to be sending files of the film for them to
To
organize
them.
their own
Right.
screenings
I
and all
see.
that.
I see.
Find a
Yeah.
way to do that in that moment. It's kind of
Right.
a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's important for them to see their story, and it's important for them to
Yeah.
understand and realize that, there are people out there, filmmakers like you and many other people in Brazil and outside world who care for their tragedy, what's happened to their way of life and way of living. Really, it's and it's I found it also the whole migration issue, because here you have this father and his daughter and the son. They obviously came from the rainforest and they've come to the town where the father is working, and the daughter has a job as a nurse, but now she's going to move to the capital, Brasilia. So there's even more of a migration. Again, you say that she's going to become a doctor. It's going to be very good for her, her career, her family, and the community. But still, she's going to be so far removed from the life that she knew about.
But aren't you removed from the life you knew about? You live in the United States, don't you?
You have no idea, not just living in the United States, because my father, he's passed away now, migrated from what is now Pakistan. There was a partition of India and Pakistan in 1947, and migrated to India. And I left India to come here. Although actually right now, although I'm in New York right now, I'm spending more and more time in India. I'm actually going to India on Tuesday. My mother's health is not good. But yes, so yeah,
That's also what they do. They go and come back the whole time. So when
Really?
Justino goes to the forest, it's not exactly that we don't know if he's going to stay there. We don't know if he's going to come back to the city.
Right.
And the same with Vanessa, because when you have really strong links, it's difficult to just cut them, and it's important to be able to do this movement. But in the same time, it's really important that people that want to leave the forest and to have a life in the city, that they can do that, and
That's
that
true.
they can and that they can be that they can be recognized as being indigenous people, or as being the Sana Tariano, or from the people from which they come from. And that not because they come to live in the city, they are less the Sana, less Tariano, less whatever. They are as much, and they are bringing, and they are dealing with a lot of challenges, different challenges, because of different languages, different ways of living, and because the way we had built our society is not intelligent at all. We're not very intelligent. We're quite stupid in the way we relate to other living beings, with other ways of life, with nature, with all that we depend to be alive. And so they have to have a lot of patience with us when they come to our world, because for them it's really clear how stupid we are in dealing with life, and how ignorant we are. So we should be really thankful to be able to exchange with their knowledge, because we have so much to learn.
Well, Maya, thank you very, very much. First of all, congratulations. It's a beautiful film. It's a very important film, because it deals with absolutely the current situation in your country. But as we talked about, migration, immigration is something that many of us are impacted. It's my life also. It's a lovely film. In such quiet manner, you're able to capture the sadness and the lives of these very lovely people. So thank you, and thank you for giving the film to Dharamsala International Film Festival. I'm really hoping people will really appreciate this film. It won all these awards at Locarno, and I'm sure it's done well in other festivals also. Good luck for the release in Brazil. I think it's very important that people in Brazil should see this film, but I think it's important that people outside also should see it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this great exchange, for the festival, to be screening the film, and for the public who will be watching it. So thank you so much.
All right. Take care then. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.